Following a ProPublica report that revealed many of the richest Americans are paying little to no taxes, many have argued for increased taxes on billionaires. Among them is Abigail Disney, heiress to the Disney fortune. Just 2 years ago, her net worth was reportedly $120 million.
In a piece in The Atlantic, Disney shares that her grandfather took action to protect the family's wealth and evade taxes, saying, quote, "He was so determined to prevent the government from taking any of the money he wanted to leave to his family that he created generation-skipping trusts to end-run the IRS." She added that her grandfather's actions would be illegal today and are fundamentally wrong.
Here to discuss Disney's comments and the tax system she called an upside-down structure are Democratic strategist and Senior Vice President of Firehouse Strategies Michael Starr Hopkins and Republican strategist and former Nevada GOP Chairwoman Amy Tarkanian. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So, Michael, let's go to you first. What do you think about the general wealth here that Abigail is talking about, and essentially the lack of a tax system that really taxes any of that family wealth as it continues to build throughout generations?
Look, we can look through the historical scope of things and see that when we have huge amounts of poverty and 1% to 2% of extreme rich individuals, it doesn't work out well, and that's what we're getting to here. I don't begrudge anyone making money and making a vast amount of money, but we need to make sure that we're paying back into the system, because whether it's Jeff Bezos and the internet, whether it's any technology that we have, it's all based on some type of governmental investment. The internet was created by the Department of Defense, and now millions of people are able to benefit off of that. So we've got to fix the system so we don't have this huge inequality within our government and within our society.
Yeah, I hear that, although I don't think there's a responsibility to really give the government more of your money if there's no outside the scope of what the law suggests. Disney said in this piece that that it was legal when her grandfather did that, and many of the things people do now to shield their income from tax liability are legal. Am I crazy here, Amy?
No, you're not crazy. And it's a very smart piece that I hope your viewers will read. She is actually being very honest, which is refreshing for somebody who has so much wealth, to actually admit that there is a problem with the tax code. And it's not necessarily, the fix is not to necessarily tax the wealthy more, even though I am not against that. It's the loopholes, it's the deductions, it's the overseas safety deposit boxes that are given to these folks who have the means to hire the folks who can find these loopholes on their behalf. And like you said, they are legal. So are they going to stop doing these things? Are they unethical? She does mention it is unethical, but they are legal. So we're going to need to change those areas. And I don't know if you're going to have any Republicans or Democrats want to touch that, because guess what they need? They need donor money, and that's going to affect their donors and not make them too happy. So when you've got the Bezos of the world, I'll just go ahead and use him as an example since Michael used him. He was reported between 2014 and 2018 of his wealth actually being upwards of 99 billion, but his only income reported was much less. It was 4.22 billion, so only paid 20% on his income taxes. But then you've got Bloomberg and Buffett, who they're in favor of raising taxes for the wealthy, but yet they reported zero.
Yeah, and I think you bring up an important point. It's one we've discussed many times on the program. It's that the system is benefiting those folks because they can pay for the tax attorneys and accountants to help it benefit them. But moreover, they can also pay for lobbyists to help them have the tax code written in a certain way. And it doesn't stop there. You're right, and we've also talked about it on this show, that if you follow the money in campaigns, you don't want to tax the people you then have to go around and go turn back to in your campaign and say, I need some money for this campaign. It's just like, you're shooting at the same donation source that you actually need to raise this money from. It's really interesting, though, and I would love to hear, Michael, your take on this. Disney said on CNN on Tuesday that the fact is that people are sitting on their rear ends, on their couches, earning and not paying taxes on money while people are going out every day to a job and working their butts off just to make ends meet. What do you think of that?
I mean, it hits the nail on the head. You've got this argument across the country about whether we should pay people $15 minimum wage, while you have the U.S. government dropping bombs worth hundreds of millions of dollars in a test. You've got Americans starving, not able to get health care, going bankrupt, trying to survive cancer, while you have billionaires out here basically borrowing money against their stock portfolios so that then they don't have to pay taxes on it because there's no capital gains if they don't pull it out. Look, the system wasn't built for poor people. It wasn't built for middle-class people. And so it's no surprise that it doesn't serve them. But we've got not just a political problem, but there's a moral problem within the country. Because in this race to get as rich as possible, we're forgetting the fundamentals of the country. If we can't make sure that every American has their basic necessity met, not more, but not less, then we're never going to actually live up to this America is the greatest mentality, because we're only as strong as our weakness. And we've got kids who have crappy schools, kids who aren't getting fed, and parents who are unable to spend time with their kids because they're working 60 hours a week, just trying to, meet their bare minimums.
We've actually got some of the sound from that interview here. Let's take a listen to it. And then, Amy, I'd love to hear what your opinion on that is.
For instance, take borrowing against your assets for cash needs. That is a way of relying on the growth in the value of your assets to create material things in your life without actually paying taxes on the growth in those assets. So you're benefiting by the growth without ever paying a capital gains tax. This is all possible because we don't tax growth, we tax work. And the fact is that people are sitting on their rear ends on their couches earning and not paying taxes on money, while people are going out every day to a job and working their butts off just to make ends meet.
Yeah, but to your point, Michael, the federal government does collect like trillions of dollars in taxes. All the things we don't like too are funded by tax money, right? The bombs, the schools get I don't think not enough money to going to the schools is the problem, right? Especially in some of the worst affected, in the worst educated areas, they're like the schools are very well funded. The per pupil spending is insane. I do want to close, I think, some of the loopholes in the tax system. Amy, isn't it true that the more complicated the system is, then the wealthier people, they're better positioned to cheat because they can hire people who know, the more complicated you make the system, the easier you make it for the well-connected and the wealthy to get ahead at the expense of everyone else.
Sure, and you use the word cheat, but guess what? They're not cheating. It's legal. So they're able to continue their bad behavior, or their behavior, if you will. The ultra wealthy, just to piggyback on what Abigail was stating, they're able to basically invest in assets or make money while you sleep. They're able to invest in things like real estate, like stocks, art, gold, things that can generate income in the long term, where maybe the average person, they're literally pinching pennies. And they are not able to participate in that area of the financial world. And that's why I think also, too, when she talks about the generational skipping trust that her grandfather created, that right there was to avoid paying estate taxes. And he was able to do so.
Yeah, Michael, do you think when wealthy people like Disney make these kinds of statements, I always think of them sort of like medieval indulgences, right? The wealthy are supposed to buy their way into heaven by being very generous or giving away some of their wealth, not all of it, or sponsoring the arts. Is she, when someone like her or someone like Warren Buffett say, yeah, tax me more, I want to give away more of my wealth, do you actually believe them, or are they just saying that in order to kind of, have a good PR kind of stunt on their behalf?
I think some people believe it. I think some people do it because it's saving a face. But I think when you look at our political spectrum, whether it's President Obama or President Trump, there's a common thread. There's this populism that's going through our country where people are really finally realizing that rich people are treated differently and have different rules and have different obligations than the average American, and it's not sustainable.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear. We've got some agreement between a Democratic strategist and Republican strategist on tax issues. So when is Congress going to get there, and what are some potential solutions that you all are hearing being batted around to kind of combat this imbalance in society that exists now?
Well, okay, I'll go ahead and throw out a disagreement right off the bat is Biden's 2.3 trillion tax proposal, which is basically going to, he wants to expand the IRS, which that I can't understand. My father actually worked for the IRS and retired from there. And the stories that he shares about how it is dysfunctional at so many levels is incredulous. The fact that we're going to be throwing more money to put more people that are incompetent and lazy that cannot be fired. It's troubling to me. And the way to pay for that possible expansion is we're going to be raising personal income, corporate, estate, payroll taxes at a time when we're all just trying to basically, pick up the pieces from the lockdowns. And now we're even hearing that there's going to be a possible gas tax. When I'm here on the West Coast, the average price for a gallon is $4.22 in California. I've seen it upwards of $5. It's ridiculous, and it's not sustainable.
Michael, we'll give you the last word. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to end up seeing a gas tax because it's regressive and ends up hurting middle class and lower class families. But I do think we need to have a conversation about repatriation of funds, people bringing them back and taking the tax hit on them. I think we need to talk about investing in infrastructure and doing preventative methods so that we're not paying more expensive costs on the back end. But at the end of the day, we've got to inform Americans that when they pay their taxes, they're going towards things that are actually going to help their everyday life. And we can't have this huge DOD budget without having, the basics of every American's needs met.
Yeah, it's an important discussion. Thank you to both of you for being here and sharing your perspectives with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next on Rising, we break down the results of the Democratic primary for mayor in New York. Really exciting. Stick with us.